She wasn't an influencer. She wasn't a star. She was a teenager who felt safer online than in the real world until the internet she trusted turned her into the victim of a crime the world will never forget. Friends, our channel is really hanging by a thread right now. The videos are barely getting any views, and honestly, we're starting to wonder if there's even a reason to keep going. It all depends on you. If you support us with likes, comments, and a subscription, we'll keep pushing forward and getting better and better. Your feedback means the world to us. Bianca Devins is often mischaracterized as a famous e-girl with a huge online following, which is, honestly, entirely untrue. Bianca's social media did boost thousands of followers prior to her passing, but she was in no way a social media icon that other publications stated she was. She wasn't making a living online. Her followers were mostly her friends, plus people she talked to often. She wasn't famous. She didn't have fans. She was simply chronically online, the way so many other teens are. Growing up, Bianca was a spitfire. Her mother, Kim, had gotten pregnant when she was just 17, after dating Bianca's father for a few months. The relationship between Kim, also Bianca's father, Mike, wasn't good, with Mike being equal parts emotionally abusive, also distant, with multiple police reports backing up her claims. But Kim did all she could to take care of Bianca, along with her younger sister. Bianca was rambunctious, so spirited, interested in everything that she saw. More than that, Bianca was incredibly protective, fighting at a young age with her father about how he treated her mother, then later protecting her younger sister in the same way. Bianca was the type of person who everyone wanted on their side. She was unafraid of conflict, always tried to do what she believed was right. She cared more than the average person, taking time to get to know the people around her to a degree most wouldn't. When asked, one of her classmates, who had been bullied, stated that he believed she was the only person in their class that had actually been nice to him throughout his 4 years in high school, that she was the only person who tried to get to know him for him, not because she wanted something, but that was just who Bianca was. Despite the fact that Bianca was incredibly forthright, so caring to those around her, she wasn't able to give that love to the one who needed it the most herself. According to her mother, when Bianca entered middle school, it was like a switch flipped in her mind. Suddenly she lost interest in everything. She had been incredibly popular early in her school career. However, with the exception of a handful of classmates, Bianca shut herself off from the rest of the world, suddenly becoming incredibly shy, also anxious in social situations. Even going outside would start to become a problem for Bianca. She almost fully retreated from the outside world, with the exception of going to school. Instead, she began to start posting online. She became obsessed with anime, Minecraft, also meme culture. She would spend hours on her phone or on the family computer, choosing to stay in rather than go out with her friends or family. She found that online, she could project the perfect image of herself, the person who she felt she was always falling short of being. It was then that she began to post under multiple different names, such as Switchblades, Bia, Oxycontin, BGTFO, so many more. The change in Bianca was startling, very concerning to those around her, so her mother made it a point to try to get her professional help. She took her to multiple therapists, where they sat down to go over the extreme change that had seemingly manifested out of nowhere, but none of the therapists they saw could determine what had happened. They said things like it was just growing pains, that she'd sort herself out. They quickly wrote the changes off as just teen girl things, then sent them on their way. However, Bianca's behavior would continue to worry those around her. After entering high school, Bianca began to be bullied. She was 5'10", pale, which made her stick out amongst her peers. Her interest in anime, also Japanese fashion, made her stand out even more, with the majority of her classmates not sharing her interests, finding them off-putting. On multiple of her social media accounts, remnants of this bullying remains, with anonymous posters telling her she's ugly, addicted to drugs, or that she should hurt herself. To those she did spend time with, she became known as a kind-hearted but erratic person. She would spend hours talking to others about their issues, allowing them to vent whatever frustrations they had to her, but when asked about herself, she would lie for seemingly no reason. On one occasion, she told a friend that she was Jewish, which she wasn't, plus that she had been diagnosed with autism. To a former boyfriend, she told them she was Asian, then later changed that, saying she was Cuban. Bianca's behaviors, though concerning, were once again hand-waved by most around her as just teenage girl things. She was simply lying to gain a certain amount of attention from those around her, that she'd grow out of it. It wasn't until she began to have panic attacks at the prospect of going outside that Kim realized that something was very wrong. Loud sounds along with sudden movements became too much for her. If she was overstimulated, she would have a mental breakdown. Halfway through her sophomore year in high school, Kim pulled her out to pursue homeschooling, wanting to help her daughter. She was also formally diagnosed with PTSD, as well as borderline personality disorder, then began getting treatment for both, which greatly helped her. On Bianca's Telegram account, Bianca acknowledged her own struggles with mental health from when she was in high school. Someone anonymously sent her a message, calling her the most mentally unstable person they knew, saying she wore it like a badge of honor. The message continued, saying her life was nothing but struggle because she wouldn't try to improve herself, instead opting for self-destruction. The person told her being mentally unhinged isn't something to be proud of, especially if it's ruining her life, finishing by telling her to quit the facade, face reality, then calling her a coward. Bianca replied to that, saying that it would have been true maybe last year. In response to another comment, Bianca wrote that when she was 15 or 16, she was stupid, making a lot of bad decisions. She said her personality hadn't changed much, except for being better now. In another post on the same forum, a seemingly separate anonymous account wrote to her, saying they really cared about her, that they wanted her to live a fulfilling life. The person told her she was better than who she used to be, also that they really hoped she would make it in life. To that, she replied that it meant a lot to her. She said she was going through some weird stuff right now, but that she had come a long way since a few years ago. Because Bianca had been taken out of school, she delved further into the internet, choosing to present herself as different, idealized versions of herself. She wanted people to see her not as who she was, but who she dreamed she could be, which materialized in her having different multiple accounts, talking to people under various aliases. In her mind, who she was in real life was disappointing, unlovable, so LARPing as other people was the only way to get people to truly love her. Some of these accounts talk about drug use, eating disorders, plus self-harm, but it's entirely unclear how much of this Bianca had actually done, versus how much she was simply, in her words, cosplaying. She was also incredibly bullied on these accounts, with people claiming that she wasn't mentally ill, just an attention-seeking sociopath. It would only get worse the farther into online culture she delved. It was around that time that Bianca found 4chan, the anonymous image board community. Bianca found the site, then quickly began posting. Because of her appearance, her youth, also the fact that she was one of the only girls posting on the image board, Bianca quickly garnered a small audience of dedicated men who were obsessed with her. In an interview about her murder, a friend of Bianca's named Erica Rose, who also posted to 4chan, to the same boards as Bianca, talked about how Bianca would engage with the men who followed her, about how she was ultimately too nice to them. These men, who she referred to as orbiters, were obsessed about the girls they followed, to the point of being dangerous. Because girls were so rare on that board, guys would fixate on them, especially if they were underage or easy to push around. These men would send gifts hoping for just a little attention back, but a lot of the time it turned into pressure for nudes. Sometimes it was just stuffed animals or clothes or a bit of cash, but other times it got darker, like sending actual drugs. The bigger the gift, the more these men acted like the girl owed them something. It's the same mindset you see with stalkers who think they've got a relationship with someone they've never even met. They built up this fake version of who they thought the girl was, turned her into an idea instead of a person. The moment she did something that didn't fit their fantasy, the illusion cracked. That break could be really dangerous. Erica, who'd seen it up close, described what usually happened when the fantasy fell apart. Most often it meant doxing or leaked nudes, which is messed up, but honestly that was considered the milder outcome. Other times it escalated into threats, guys showing up at the girl's house out of nowhere, talking about killing her or even her family. A lot of these girls were still kids, still living at home. In one extreme case, a man called in a mass shooting threat at a girl's school. She didn't even know if he'd go through with it. The FBI had to step in just to figure out if the threat was real, all because she upset his twisted version of who she was supposed to be. These were the people Bianca was spending so much of her time with online. They were the ones who made her feel seen, made her feel cared about, showering her with gifts every time she posted a picture. She had no idea she was being groomed. One of the people she met through 4chan ended up being her ex. His real name's not public, so let's just call him Rob. He was 18 when they connected. Bianca was 15. They started talking on a hookup board, met up, and within 2 weeks she was calling him her boyfriend. Like Bianca, Rob had his own mental health struggles, but also substance issues. According to her mom, the two of them were toxic, living off drama. They'd fight, break up, then act like nothing happened and get back together. That went on for 2 years. More than once, Bianca ran away just to be with him. There were 3 missing persons reports filed before she turned 17, and every time she was found, she was with Rob. From his side, he claimed she felt he was the only one who really loved her, that she couldn't face being alone, so she looked past his worst behavior, just to avoid being by herself. Her mom, Kim, never trusted him, for good reason. After their first breakup, he uploaded a sex video of the two of them. She was 15 at the time. The video was recorded without her knowing. Kim took her straight to the police. What Rob had done wasn't only revenge porn, it was child porn. Rob panicked, told Bianca if charges stuck his life would be ruined, said he'd kill himself, made it sound like a goodbye. After that, Bianca stopped cooperating. She told police she didn't want to press charges anymore. Kim was furious, wanted him prosecuted for exploiting her daughter, but Bianca held firm. A couple days later, she was back with him. Trying to keep her safe, Kim placed her under a supervision order. That meant Bianca wore an ankle monitor, basically house arrest. Kim hoped it would stop her from running off again. It didn't. Bianca cut the monitor and tried to go back to Rob. After all the back and forth, she was finally sent to Street Ann Institute, a mental health facility in Albany. That's where she made real progress, started turning a corner. From there, she even wrote a Mother's Day post. She admitted she hadn't been around the summer before, so she literally photoshopped herself into family photos she missed. She told her mom and stepmom they'd always been there for her, doing everything possible even when she couldn't see it. She said at her worst, they still called every day, tried to visit, while other kids at the facility didn't have that support. Those kids kept telling her how lucky she was, and she realized they were right. She wrote about appreciating them more than ever, mentioned a card from her mom that was so full she had to squeeze "Love Mom" off the edge. She said she cried read it over and over because it mattered so much. She thanked her stepmom too, said even without blood relation she gave her double the motherhood, understood her actions, shared experiences. She hoped she could give back even half the happiness they gave her. She said how glad she was to have them both, how much she loved them, how she wanted to make them proud. She promised that even when she left for college, she'd carry them with her every day. After 8 months away, she said their family felt stronger than ever. She closed by saying how much she loved them and wished them a happy Mother's Day. When she came home in February of 2019, her family noticed it right away. She seemed different, healthier, calmer, more motivated, just in a better place overall. She had this new drive to study, to go after psychology in college, but also to reconnect with friends she'd lost because of everything she'd gone through. For a while, it really looked like things were turning around, like she had nowhere to go but up. That didn't last though, because then she met Brandon Clark. Now, before getting into Brandon, it helps to look at his dad, Jason, because honestly, a lot of what Brandon became seems like a reflection of him. Not much is known about Jason beyond being his father, but after everything happened, he still insisted he raised his son right, which, well, clearly not. Back in 2010, when Brandon was 12, Jason snapped. He thought his wife was cheating. Out of nowhere, he turned violent, held her hostage for over 10 hours, beat her, pressed a butcher knife to her throat, kept shouting he'd kill her then kill himself. It all started when she was talking to her mom, who lived with them. He accused her, she laughed it off, said he was being ridiculous, went back to the conversation, but that only pushed him further. He jumped on her, hit her again and again. Her mom panicked, ran to call 911. Jason chased her, ripped the phone right out of the wall. Somehow she escaped, ran next door, called for help. By then, Jason had barricaded himself inside with his wife, knife still in hand. When the police showed up, they said he slammed her head into a wall, left her bleeding. He forced her to yell out that she was being held hostage, that if anyone came close, she'd die. Hours later, he broke down crying, wrapped her in a blanket, said he didn't mean it. After 10 hours, He finally let her go, but officers arrested him on the spot. He was hit with felony assault, criminal possession of a weapon, unlawful imprisonment, aggravated contempt, menacing charges, even obstruction. What no one knows for sure is if Brandon saw it. Some people think he was in the house. Others think maybe he at least witnessed the chaos outside. Either way, the standoff dragged on for 10 hours. The media was there. Neighbors were watching. Brandon likely absorbed all of it. The parallels between that day and what Brandon later did are hard to ignore, and a lot of people believe he ended up replicating his father. Brandon himself, he was unsettling. People talked about Bianca with warmth, compassion, kindness. Stories about Brandon were the opposite. Most thought something was off. The only exceptions were his parents, who swore they raised him well, which is just not true. His father was arrested for abusing his mother. His mother was arrested too. He wound up in foster care. On the surface, he looked like a nerdy, harmless guy. Underneath, he was obsessed with underage girls. At 16, friends said he was hooked on Japanese comics that sexualized kids. He read thousands of pages of that stuff. When they found out, they were horrified. It was obvious what it meant, so they confronted him. He brushed it off, said it was just drawings, nothing real. But at the same time, he was grooming a 12-year-old online, pushing her to be his girlfriend, pressuring her to send sexual photos. When his friends called him out, he made excuses. They cut him off completely. It doesn't look like anyone reported it. By then, Brandon was already a predator. He was practicing, figuring out how to manipulate, building this image of a perfect gentleman. He learned how to act safe, respectful, supportive, but it was all calculated. He built a mask to get access to whoever he targeted. Eventually, that target was Bianca. Bianca met Brandon through Instagram, and pretty quickly they turned into fast friends. He was 21, she had just turned 17, and to him she seemed perfect. She was slender, looked young, but what really drew him in was her sweet, trusting nature. He poured constant attention on her compliments, messages, the kind of non-stop adoration she mistook for harmless friendship. With her years of posting on 4chan, he was everywhere. He'd drop comments on nearly every photo, going on about how lucky he felt to know her, how beautiful she was. If she threw up a story on Instagram, his messages popped in seconds later. Almost overnight, he managed to weave himself into the fabric of her life. Now, Bianca had been upfront about what she wanted. She never felt anything beyond friendship, and she'd soften his compliments by reminding him they were just friends. She wasn't looking for a relationship, not with college coming in the fall. She wanted a clean start, a new chapter, and a boyfriend didn't fit that plan. Sure, they had hooked up a couple of times before, but she stayed clear to her. Brandon was just a friend. Brandon didn't see it that way. He was locked in, convinced she'd become his girlfriend. He even started calling himself her boyfriend when talking around her family. He slid into her life so easily he even won over her mom. When Kim met him, she was surprised by how open he was, how willing to talk about his rough childhood. What he didn't say was just how obsessed he already was with Bianca. After the nightmare with Rob, Brandon looked like a breath of fresh air. Truth was, everything he did was methodical, calculated, pre-planned. He figured if he got close enough to Kim, she'd push Bianca toward him. But Kim actually did the opposite. She knew her daughter wasn't looking to be tied down. She thought Brandon seemed decent enough, but it was obvious his feelings were a lot bigger than Bianca's now, and so she encouraged her daughter to stay honest with him, to stop accepting gifts, because it was giving him the wrong idea. Kim told her flat out, even if she didn't mean to, she was leading him on. Better to pull back, give him space, let him find someone else. Bianca brushed it off, told her mom they were just friends. Brandon said he was fine with that, okay with them not being together. So when Bianca asked if it would be all right to go to her first concert since coming back from St. Anne's, Kim felt reassured knowing Brandon would be the one driving her. No way she could have guessed what he had planned. In the days before, Bianca had been chatting on Discord with a boy she liked. She wasn't looking for a relationship, but she thought he was cute, sweet, worth getting to know. He was shy, a little awkward, hadn't even had his first kiss, which she thought was kind of endearing. They'd been talking about a week, planned to meet up at the show. She was excited about him, saw something genuine there, wanted to be his first kiss. So, Trying to stay honest, she told Brandon she'd be meeting someone else, someone she liked. She asked if he'd be okay with that, or maybe it would be better if she just went alone. Outwardly, he played it cool, said he didn't mind since they weren't together, but that couldn't have been further from the truth. After that talk, Brandon went straight to searching online how to cut a carotid artery, how to incapacitate someone. He loaded a knife, a rope, and a large tarp into his car. He was already setting the stage. On the day of the concert, he even wrote a checklist in his phone. Change his Instagram bio to mark the date of his own death, drop a line saying he felt no pain, post a Fight Club quote about life ending 1 minute at a time. He packed his laptop, his hard drive, a can of spray paint, a lighter, then the tarp and the knife. He drove to Bianca's house, picked her up, told her mom goodbye, promised he'd bring her home safe. On the ride, Bianca was full of energy, chatting in Discord calls, sending texts, laughing. She was thrilled, one of her favorite artists, a night out, the chance to see the boy she was interested in. She had no idea what Brandon had already set in motion. At the show, she met up with her Discord friend. In her messages later, she said they kissed twice, held hands. Brandon saw it, and it burned him up inside. Bianca could tell he was upset, but she brushed it off. They had already talked about this. In her mind, it was settled. She was on cloud 9, and she texted her friend afterward about how amazing the night had been. While they drove home, Bianca fell asleep in the back seat of Brandon's car. While she slept, he snapped a photo while driving, then posted it to his Instagram story with a line that hinted at hell coming, plus a smug bit about redemption. He drove to a dead-end road near the high school Bianca had attended. While she still slept, got out, moved to the trunk, pulled out her knife, filmed the whole thing on his phone. He got back in, woke her up, then pushed her about kissing the other guy. Bianca apologized, said she hadn't meant to upset him, but made it clear they were not in a relationship, did not see him that way. She also reminded him they had already talked about this before, but her mind hadn't changed. According to police who viewed the footage, Bianca stated they were not together, but they would never be together. Brandon then struck Bianca in the face, which caused her to fall backward, stunned, confused about what had just happened because Brandon had never been violent toward her before. Bianca threatened to get out of the car, walk the rest of the way home, but before she grasped the gravity of the situation, Brandon pulled out his knife, cut her throat. According to those who saw the video, Bianca had no idea what was coming, didn't have a chance to fight back or defend herself. Brandon turned the camera off, then immediately started recording again, capturing her last breath, then taking pictures of her body. He logged into Discord, posted a photo of her body in his car, attached a taunting caption that told viewers they would have to find someone else to orbit. He then posted those same images to Instagram with a caption that claimed sorrow for Bianca. At first, people didn't know what to make of the posts. The gore looked alarming, but some assumed it was just a terrible shock joke paired with a disturbing movie still. Some of Bianca's friends saw the post, tried to run reverse image searches, hoped it was a still from a film or a photo shoot. When people asked where the image came from, Brandon replied that it was taken in his car, tossed in a vulgar brag about what he had done to Bianca. After that, he told followers to subscribe to PewDiePie, a then-current meme that referenced the subscriber race between PewDiePie but T-Series. It had also previously been said by another person who had live-streamed a violent attack. Once people realized what they were seeing, that he wasn't joking, the cops were called. However, no one knew where Brandon was. The story began to pick up steam online quickly. Bianca's name started to trend, with people posting images of her body on Twitter plus other social platforms. Hashtag RIP Bianca filled up with images of her body, with even more people not understanding what was going on, why they were seeing it. News began to spread like wildfire about a young girl who had been killed, plus various false reports surfaced. Some sites claimed Brandon was her boyfriend, others said he was an online stalker, plus various outlets tried to blame Bianca for the attack, saying she had led him on, said she deserved it. None of the news at that time actually had a grasp of what had happened, so false information continued for weeks. It wasn't until 7:30 a.m. when Brandon himself called 911, let them know he was on Poe Street, which was a dead-end road in Utica. He joked to the operator that he had just committed a murder-suicide, said he had to go to complete the suicide part. It's worth noting he was laughing, joking during this time, which we know because he was still filming himself. Despite saying he wanted to die, that wasn't quite the case. Instead of killing himself, he started a small fire by the car, burned his laptop plus his hard drive, most likely because they contained further evidence of planning the murder, plus his pedophilic obsession with young girls. He also spray-painted the phrase, "May you never forget me," on the ground, which showed how badly he craved fame plus notoriety. He began to live stream to his Instagram followers while lying on a green tarp he had placed over Bianca's body. News of what he had done had already broken, so as he lay on the tarp covering Bianca's body, thousands watched, recorded, wondered what he would do next. It wasn't until police arrived on scene that Clark finally tried to kill himself. He put a knife to his throat, tried to cut, but stopped, seemingly after he realized how much it would hurt. After this pathetic attempt to injure himself, he took a selfie that showed his wounded throat, captioned it "Ashes to Ashes," then posted it to his Instagram story. The officers on scene had no idea what they were walking into, how many weapons he had, what he had planned, so they kept a respectful distance, something Brandon clearly hadn't considered. He had, it seemed, hoped they would rush in to disarm him while he hurt himself, but instead, they just watched, confused. After Brandon posted the photo, officers called out, asked where Bianca was. He replied with a crude remark that implied the answer was obvious, then pointed toward a small clump of dark hair sticking out from the tarp. After Brandon received treatment for his failed attempt to cut his own throat, he was released into police custody, where investigators tried to question him about what had happened, but Brandon seemed far more focused on how news outlets covered the killing, how the wider world was reacting. He had done this to be famous, it worked. According to multiple articles, Brandon killed Bianca to prove he wasn't another pushover beta male orbiter, to prove he wasn't like other guys who got rejected. He wanted to show he was strong, to show he took what he wanted. It seemed Brandon had done exactly that. Whatever satisfaction Brandon thought he got from killing Bianca, then posting her body online, didn't last long, because when he showed up in court, he looked rough, haggard, worn down. He had done this to make himself famous, to push the idea that he wasn't some guy who could be rejected or brushed aside by women. Yet by the time he stood there in front of a judge, most outlets had already labeled him exactly that, a pathetic pedophilic man who couldn't handle being told no. Even though he had brought the knife, the tarp, all the other items he used, even though he posted images of her body, even though he live-streamed and admitted he was the one who killed her, Clark still entered a plea of not guilty to second-degree murder. In late July of 2019, he started writing letters from prison to different media contacts, claiming he had blacked out during the killing, said he didn't remember what had happened, insisted he lost control, couldn't recall even basic details until police questioned him. It was obvious he was setting up some kind of insanity defense, or at least trying for diminished capacity. That angle collapsed the moment investigators pulled his search history, which showed weeks of planning for Bianca's murder. Once he realized that, he changed his plea to guilty. In mid-March of 2021, almost 2 years after Bianca's death, Brandon was sentenced to 25 years to life. But the story didn't end with his sentencing. By July of that same year, Bianca's family had filed a lawsuit against the Oneida County District Attorney's Office over distribution of child pornography. According to that suit, the Devons family learned through a documentary producer that not only had they been sent footage of Bianca's murder, but also videos of her having sex that were entered as trial evidence. They had even been given access to nude photos of Bianca, all of which counted as child pornography, since she died before her 18th birthday. Those same files were allegedly sent to a YouTuber who had covered the case, someone Brandon had been in contact with from prison. Kim and the rest of the family have been pushing to hold big tech companies like Google but Facebook accountable for keeping that content online. They've been fighting to change the law through what they call Bianca's Law, trying to make sure no other family has to deal with the same nightmare. So, what do you think? Why are our videos not getting views? Why is the channel not growing? We really need your honest feedback in the comments. Say it straight, even if it's harsh. What's wrong with our channel, and what can we do better?